Everybody, it is time for the last segment of the Earl on the Train of chapter 27 and then the short epilogue for you. Chapter 27, To Have and to Hold. The next day. Good God, his family was enormous. Nick didn't even recognize some of the faces in the crowd, let alone know their names. He may have been able to hazard a guess as to whether the strangers came from the prolific Masterson side of his mother's still more fecund relations, but then only because of who they were sitting with. Most amazingly, they were all here, filling the church on such short notice. Maybe he was related to half of London. If anyone was missing, he couldn't tell, except for the one face that meant the most to him. He scanned the congregation again. His mother smiled at him from the front of the pack. Nick fidgeted with his cufflinks. "Wedding day jitters, Sharp?" Nick turned to face Ilston. "No." The energy humming in his veins stemmed more from impatience than anything else. He longed for Ida to be his, not only by their mutual agreement, but in the eyes of God and man. "I'm eager to see my bride." "Ah, of course. I know you sent it weeks ago, but I haven't yet had the chance to thank you for your report. Most of your troublemakers have been rounded up and locked away in prison or asylums. That man you called Thin Face? Ex-military, once an intelligence agent in India. Later worked for the Imperial Potions Company. They fired him several months ago. It's believed he recruited the rogue soldiers working with him. Lady Holbeck, I'm afraid, has vanished without a trace. Gone into seclusion, people say, as a result of her husband's violent death." "Violent death at her own hands," Nick scoffed. "We'll keep an eye out for her. As for the potions crisis, we have taken your recommendation and now have professionals looking into the matter." Nick's gaze drifted to the candlelit sconces around the church. A part of him would be happy to see potions vanish entirely. He was counting his temperance in weeks now, and hoped to soon make it months. He knew, though, that the loss of potions would devastate the economy. He had already seen signs of lost jobs and closing businesses. He couldn't wish for the world to suffer merely to spare himself. He couldn't wish for Ida's brilliant business to die, just as it was beginning. "Send as many spies as you like," he said, "so long as you don't send me. I'm finished with investigations in danger." "You made that quite clear, my boy. Your financial contribution to the cause was most generous. Combined with my resources and the funds authorized by Parliament, we could afford to send our best man." "A loyal man, I hope. Someone of good character." "Precisely why I did the choosing." Ilston clapped Nick on the shoulder. "Congratulations, Nicholas. I will miss having your assistance, but I wish you all happiness." Ilston nodded goodbye and strode off to take the seat beside Nick's mother. The two clasped hands, chatted and laughed as loving siblings ought. Nick looked away, fighting envy. He'd known Anna was unlikely to be here, but her absence still left a gnawing emptiness in his gut. Or perhaps that was the result of breaking his fast with nothing but coffee. Damn. He should have eaten something. Ida would have made him eat something. He looked out over the heads of the assembled crowd, toward the door where she would be entering at any moment. Something solid rammed into him from behind, and he staggered to keep his balance. A pair of slender arms wrapped around his waist, short gloves only half concealing the familiar crescent-shaped birthmark on the left wrist. "Anna!" He spun around and crushed her to his chest. "You made it!" She hugged him for a long moment before stepping back and swatting at him playfully. Amber eyes that matched his own smiled up at him from her pretty oval-shaped face. She wore her dark hair in its usual simple knot, but stray tendrils had come loose during her travels. Or had been knocked loose due to amorous exploits with her beloved husband. If it was the latter, Nick didn't want to know. "Do you really think I would miss your wedding?" Anna asked. "We drove all night. We've exhausted all the fuel, and the prices have become ridiculous, so I don't know how we will drive back. Perhaps we'll spend some time in London." "Please do. I would like you to get to know Ida. I think you two will get along famously." "Well, I'm certainly not leaving until I've spoken with her at least a few times. I'm dying of curiosity, Nick. She must be something to have gotten you all turned upside down in so short a time." He grinned. "She well may be a force of nature. She swept into my life without warning, and I was powerless to resist her." Her eyes twinkled. "Oh, you're in a bad way, brother. I can't wait to see the two of you together. And once the guests have gone, you are going to sit down and tell me everything. Between your telegrams that were barely a sentence and Mother's Dickensian prose, it's proven impossible to piece together the truth of your real-life melodrama. Either a scandalous woman was ruining you, or you were ruining her. Then someone was in danger, but I never did ascertain which of you it was. Both of us. I used the rabbit. Anna jumped in surprise. No. I swear it. The weapon saved my life. I have no plans to restuff him with anything other than what ought to go inside a toy. I'm done with potions of all sorts. She nodded thoughtfully. I can respect that. But if you do ever again find yourself in danger, brother, you let me know at once. Nick the girl bear is still armed, and I'll happily sacrifice her to save my family. Nick hugged his sister once again. I love you, Anna. Thank you for rushing here to be with me. It means the world. And I promise to tell you the whole story from beginning to end. His mouth twitched up into yet another broad smile. Or, rather, Ida will tell you the whole story. She's a far better talker than I. She will give you details that I won't even remember I had forgotten. Anna slipped from his grasp. And she'll probably know the names of the people you encountered. Nick shuddered. Oh, God, the name problem. You are going to have great fun at my expense, I'm afraid. Excellent. I can hardly wait. Now I must go find a seat, because your bride has just appeared. Anna darted off, but Nick couldn't have said what direction she went. His eyes were riveted on Ida. She dazzled in her blue and pink dress, a picture of elegance and happiness. White flowers decorated her hair, a matching bouquet clutched in her hands. The sharp diamonds glittered at her throat. Her cheeks glowed, and her smile shone bright as 1,000 candles. The congregation rose, and music swelled as Ida began her slow march to the altar. The breath whooshed from his lungs. Wetness pricked at the corners of his eyes. This was really happening. He was marrying the woman he loved more than life itself. Their eyes met, linking them one to the other across the length of the church. A single tear overflowed, leaving a trail of moisture down Nick's cheek. He made no move to wipe it away or hide it. He would have no shame in his joy. At long last she stood before him, her own eyes bright and misty, sparking a second upwelling of emotion. Ida mine, he murmured. I am yours, forever. Dearly beloved, the priest began. The words faded to a rhythmic backdrop to the paradise that was Ida's adoring smile. Before he knew it, Nick was pledging to love, comfort, honor, and keep her. The priest turned to Ida. Wilt thou have this man to be thy wedded husband, to live together after God's ordinance in the holy estate of matrimony? Wilt thou obey him and serve him, love, honor, and keep him, in sickness and in health, and forsaking all others, keep thee only unto him so long as ye both shall live? I will, she declared. Then, except for the obeying bit. All color drained from the minister's face. Keep going, Nick hissed. He would allow nothing and no one to stop this marriage. Yes, who giveth this woman to be married to this man? Ida's father presented her, giving Nick a stony look. With any luck, his temper would cool once the ceremony had ended. Though, after being caught naked in a tub with the man's daughter, Nick supposed he was fortunate not to have a gun pointed at his back. He took Ida's right hand in his own and made his vows to her, his voice thick with emotion. Ida's fingers squeezed his. Blinking back tears, she said, in a voice clear and firm, I, Ida, take thee, Nicholas, to be my wedded husband, to have and to hold from this day forward, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and health, to love, cherish, and to protect, till death do us part, according to God's holy ordinance, and therefore I give thee my troth. Nick had at least 2 cousins with connections to the newspaper industry. He and Ida would be all over the gossip rags tomorrow. The radical Earl of Sharp and his scandalous, disobedient, feminist wife. No doubt his mother would clip all the articles and carefully preserve them for future generations to snicker at. Which suited Nick just fine. He slipped the pink heart ring onto the 4th finger of Ida's left hand. He spoke again, his words an ardent growl. With this ring I thee wed, with my body I thee worship. The service continued on, but the only remaining portion that Nick heeded was man and wife. Their fingers would not untwine. He couldn't tear his eyes from her face. How had he gotten so damn lucky? He could stand there and bask in her perfection for all time. Nick! He blinked at her. Kiss me, silly! He bent down and pressed a chaste kiss to her lips, that brief touch sparking a rush of hot desire for what was yet to come. I love you. I love you too, husband. The smile she bestowed upon him nearly made him haul her against him and give him a give her a kiss that would cause more than one of his delicately inclined aunts to swoon. Ida stepped back just in time to prevent such a disaster, and took hold of his arm with a possessive grip. "Are all these people coming to your house for the wedding breakfast? Our house, I mean?" she asked as they made their way out to his carriage. "I assume so. Most will simply stop in, grab a bite of cake, and leave. I ordered cake from 3 different bakers because of the short notice. I hope it will be enough." "I hope we have a chance to eat some. I understand we have to spend most of our time greeting people and accepting congratulations." "They had better save us some cake. I'm famished." "Didn't you eat anything before coming to church?" "Only coffee." Ida rolled her eyes. "How did you ever manage without me?" "Badly." He handed her up into the coach and climbed in behind her. "Shall I request the driver take a leisurely route back to my house? I entirely understand if you need time to prepare yourself before confronting my untold number of cousins. I don't even know all of their names." Ida laughed. "Seeing as how you didn't know my name until you were practically in my bed, this is not surprising in the least." Nick moved to sit beside her, draping an arm around her shoulders. "Ah, but I know your name now, Ida, Lady Sharp." Her lips grazed his cheek. "A leisurely ride does sound nice, but we can't ignore your stomach. How hungry are you?" He caught her chin in his hand, tilting her head to gaze deeply into her eyes. "Ravenous." 1 hour later, the happy but disheveled couple alighted from the vehicle and ascended the steps of the home that was now theirs. Nick held his wife close, breathing in the strawberry perfume that she had selected especially for him. "I find I no longer care whether they've saved us any cake," he said. His stomach grumbled, and she raised a skeptical brow. "Really?" "Absolutely. I'd rather have berries any day." He scooped her up off her feet and carried her across the threshold. Home, at last. Epilogue. London, November 1882. "Lady Sharp!" Ida sighed and set down her book. A woman swamped in layers of red plaid barged into the drawing-room, her bustle wobbling as she attempted to run in her tight, heavy garments. Nick's portly butler trailed after her, red-faced and out of breath. "Lady Whitmore to see you, my lady," he wheezed. Ida thanked him with a forced smile. She ought to have told the staff that she wasn't at home to callers. These early months were a critical time for her burgeoning business, and the combination of her workload and her impending motherhood left her waging a constant war with fatigue. She valued these restful moments and disliked any interruption that wasn't her husband. Lady Whitmore plunked down in a chair opposite the couch where Ida sat. "Oh, Lady Sharp, thank goodness you're available today. I am desperate, absolutely desperate." Ida studied her visitor, trying to recall when they had been introduced. It must have been at a party, because she certainly had never called here before. Unless she was one of Nick's cousins. Ida didn't know half of them yet, though she was relatively certain she now knew more of their names than he did. "You are the Ida, are you not?" Lady Whitmore asked. "Of Perfumes by Ida? I sent one of my women to purchase 2 of your scented handkerchiefs some weeks ago, and now I simply cannot do without. 6 washings they've gone through. 6! And the scent is as fresh and perfect as the day they were purchased. I must have a dozen more in every color, in scents of rose, lavender, and violet, and I need them in time for Christmas. You see, I had planned to distribute bottles of Mr. Quimby's new fantastical flavorant, which he said would turn ordinary water into exotic elixirs of fruity delight. But in truth, the water simply tastes as if someone may once have waved a piece of fruit in its general direction." Ida swallowed back a laugh. Alfred's newest get-rich-quick scheme was as hopeless as the last, but at least this one was funny. "You must help me, Lady Sharp. My Christmas ball will be absolutely ruined without memorable favors for all the ladies. Your perfume handkerchiefs are my only hope. I also must have an additional set made for myself based on my own personal scent. Please tell me it is not hopeless." "A rush job that size is possible, though it would incur an additional charge," Ida replied, "as would a custom scent." Of course. Price is no obstacle. I must have those handkerchiefs." "And you will have them. Let me fetch my notebook, and we can chat over tea." Lady Whitmore seized Ida's hand and squeezed it. "Thank you, Lady Sharp. You are such a dear." 2 pots of tea and a half-dozen chocolate biscuits later, Ida grinned down at her neat list of details and pricing for the largest order she had ever taken on. It would mean putting off her next experiment until after the new year, but she would absolutely trade that for the boost this would give her reputation. "This has been so wonderful, Lady Sharp," her new friend gushed. "I was rather shocked by the whole notion of a lady doing business, you know, but now that we have talked it really does make great sense. Why, I would much prefer if all such dealings involved tea and genteel women, and you are just the unique sort of person to set the trend, what with your short hair and your peculiar husband. Did he truly decorate this entire house himself? I heard that Lord Lakewood has hired him to redesign every room in his new townhouse. Hired him. For pay." "All true. Lord Sharp has very modern ideas about business and gentlemanly professions." "Well, I'm not certain what to think of it all, but this room is charming. The furniture seems rather large and masculine for a drawing-room, but the pink color softens everything." "Thank you. I'm very fond of it. I much prefer the heavier furniture, because I want both ladies and gentlemen to feel welcomed here. If I had dainty little pieces, my husband might never sit down for fear of breaking them."
"So good of you to think of me, darling."
Ida's head swiveled in the direction of that lovely deep voice, and she sprang from her seat. "Nick, you're home! I thought Lakewood might keep you forever." He crossed the room and kissed her cheek.
"I had to talk him out of purchasing the most unsightly chandelier. It looked like something out of a Parisian brothel." His eyes darted to their guest. Not that I have ever visited such a place."
"Nick, you know Lady Whitmore, don't you? She has placed a large order for my perfume handkerchiefs." Lady Whitmore allowed Nick to bow over her hand. Then she turned and caught Ida up in a sudden embrace, kissing the air to either side of her cheek in continental fashion. "Thank you, my dear. I'm so pleased I could do business with you. And I may be in touch with you, Lord Sharp, about my own drawing-room."
"I would be happy to discuss it, Lady—"
"Whitmore," Ida whispered.
"Whitmore."
"Excellent. Good day to you both." The moment Lady Whitmore was out the door, Nick closed it behind her and turned the key.
"So, a large order?"
"The largest." Ida couldn't help bouncing. "I'm so excited. Nervous, but excited." Nick pulled her into his arms.
"Congratulations, love. You deserve success after all your hard work."
He kissed her neck, unfastening the buttons at the back of her dress to tug the collar lower.
"I was dismayed, however, to discover that my lovely wife is a liar."
"Am I? What did I say?" Nick backed her up against the fainting couch. Ida sank onto the cushions, and he lowered himself over her, his eager hands dragging her neckline down and her skirts up.
"You didn't tell her the real reason we purchased such sturdy furniture."
Ida wound her arms around his neck and pressed her mouth to his in a long, luxurious kiss. "I can't tell her that," she said, when they at last came up for air. "The only thing more scandalous than a lord and lady engaging in trade is a lord and lady passionately in love with one another."
"Well, then, my scandalous lady, please allow your scandalous lord to demonstrate the depths of his passionate love."
Ida pulled him close, savoring his heat, his scent, and the weight of his hard body against her own. Wanting him. Loving him. It would be my pleasure. The end. Thanks, everybody, for watching. I hope you enjoyed the Earl on the Train. It was fun reading to you.